Hello, Jack. Welcome. I thank you very much for agreeing to interview today. We're going to be very interested to hear your insights and to hear some of the stories you might tell us. Now, I know that you have been through the education system and that you've been through college and now you're out in the work world. And so we are wondering how you view education and how do you think you've been prepared and maybe what should we do for the 21st century. Now, I'm not going to take notes during this. We're mostly going to do it on video, and you'll have a chance to look at the video at the end.
Okay.
And I might interrupt here and there with questions, so, this could happen. All right. But let's just start. If you could just tell us a story or two about your experience with the education system.
Sure. Well, I think, obviously college is about learning how to learn, and that's what carries over to the workplace. But how college classes are conducted, I think, is an interesting point, especially toward the later part of college. There were more online classes. I saw it like in my 4 years toward junior and senior year. There were more offerings. One of them I had to do was you could choose. It was the same course. You could either log in remotely and watch it, or you could go to the brick and mortar classroom.
Action with the instructors, how did that go? Can you tell me a little more about that?
I can't. Yeah, I was a face-to-face student, and so from both, I think the student perspective and the professor perspective, for that course, I think it was better to be in the class because you could ask questions to the professor directly after class, that kind of thing, casually, without having to be like, oh, should I email this professor? Is that weird? You could do the same things you would do in a normal class that I was so used to, whereas with an online, it's something that I had never had experience with prior to that.
So from your perspective personally, what do you think we should look at in terms of the future? Because you just cited some issues online, some issues face-to-face. How can we make this work?
Well, we did a lot of paper writing at the end of the class on that, because it's class, but in education in general. And I think the general consensus, and what I personally thought, was that classes that are taken from physically in the classroom locations and tried to convert to an online kind of format don't really work because they're not built from the ground up to be easy on the internet. So what we thought was that people should design courses from the very beginning with the intention of being taught online, and then you will get that sort of weird mix that doesn't quite work out.
That's very interesting because we've been talking in our courses at New England College about reframing systems and changing paradigms, and you're actually reframing the construct and the facilitation of online courses, with
Right, it has to be from the ground up and a separate kind of thing. It can't be a weird mix of the two.
Interesting, thank you. Can you please tell me just a little more about the influence of the group and the professor on your work? I'm very interested in that part.
Sure. I think that's actually what made the online portion of the class work even a little bit, was that students weren't lost in the crowd, as they can sometimes be with an online class, because then you at least, even if you don't know the person, you wouldn't recognize them in the crowd, you're familiar with their blog. You know a lot more about them than you would otherwise, and that you get to know them through that, and you're more likely to give comments, and you're commenting on the same person's work throughout the course of the semester. You get to know them that way.
This is very interesting to me because you're showing me that the social piece and the emotional piece, as well as the technical piece and learning the information, they all work together.
It was critical.
For success.
Yeah. Neither part would have worked, I don't think, if you didn't have them together. You had to have, yep.
Great, thank you. So Jack, we've made the connection here with the social, emotional, and academic learning. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with the social things outside of the academic courses and how that might have influenced your academic learning at college?
Sure. I think both things I majored in, they were a result of friendships I had more than anything else. Especially with liberal arts, you take a variety of classes, but you tend to enjoy the classes more where your friends are in them and that kind of thing. So I took more classes in those, and I wound up developing an interest. So for geography, for example, my roommate sophomore year was interested in that, and I was too to begin with, but then we took more classes together, and it wound up being, oh, we have a lot of credits in this, let's major in it, that kind of thing, and obviously we had an interest, but that was one, and then even later I had another roommate who had majored in computer science, and it was the same thing. I saw the work he was doing, it looked cool, it was something I had never been exposed to, and I decided to try out some courses for myself. So I think those kinds of relationships, in addition to just getting interest, but like you have support when you end up taking on that work. Like if I'd gotten into those majors and didn't know anyone in them, I would be studying alone for things, I wouldn't have anyone to ask questions, all that kind of thing, where having those physical connections, I can go, hey, have you ever seen this before? And get feedback from people I know and trust is really a benefit.
That's interesting. So it's sort of a community of learners supporting each other, which essentially is what is the concept of cohorts, as groups of people go through systems and schools and such.
Right. It's actually even beyond school now. Now that I've graduated, we talk a lot about like, okay, what are you doing at work? What am I doing? And see sort of what fields we want to go into, what markets are good, what is a good use of our skills.
So you're talking networking here.
Networking, but also like just staying up on things like, hey, so what do you use at work? Like that kind of thing, for tools, for just different projects, that kind of thing. And also like, I haven't done it, but I have friends who have gone to conferences together just for fun, after school. Like,
wow, that's fantastic.
yeah, it's kind of, yep, it's cool.
That's great. Now, say you're at your job and you're communicating, with this community. What methods do you use?
Actually, my company's based outside of the U.S., so we use all kinds of things, especially for like trying to connect with people who aren't physically on site. So every morning I have a meeting from the U.S. I have a meeting with people in the Netherlands, and we use just phone for that. But once a month we use like a video conferencing room, so that we sort of maintain that bond. And also, in addition to like just talking to them daily, we also will try to meet up in person once a year.
In person? How can you do that?
They fly them in.
Fly them in?
Yep. Otherwise, I mean, you work with people every day, but if you can't regularly interact with them like that, you don't get those same bonds.
That's interesting, because that brings us back to that face-to-face component that you had referred to earlier.
Yes.
In your courses, it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, the same things that work there are working in your professional world as well.
100%. Yep.
Thank you.
We learn things, but frequently we never learn why. We're learning this part of math, but the teacher never goes into why it's important, why it was developed in the first place. The learning things didn't come out of nowhere. It came from something. For me, I need to know the background before I can understand how to do something. So that's really, for me, something that's always bothered me, is that's not always covered.
That's a very interesting perspective. Thank you so much. And thank you again for the interview. I'm going to go then and take the videos and put them together, do some editing, and then I will show them to you and certainly give you a chance to add or do anything else that you think might be needed.
Thank you.
And then I'll also show you a final written version of the copy.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
You too.